Good morning. There was a great rabbi in America by the name of Rabbi Eliezer Silver, and he was once in a courtroom as a witness, and he was put on the stand. And the attorney that was trying to get credible evidence and testimony from him wanted to impress the court with his credentials. So his lawyer said to him, "Is it true, Rabbi Silver, that you're one of the leading rabbis in America?" And he responded and he said, "Well, not only am I one of the leading rabbis in America, but also in Canada as well." And then he said, "Is it true that you're a great Torah scholar and a Talmudic scholar?" Rabbi Silver said, "I'm probably the greatest Talmudic scholar." At which point the lawyer said, "May I ask a question?" And he said, "Rabbi, does your religion say anything about humility?" And the rabbi said, "Of course it does, but I'm under oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth." This week's Torah portion begins with the word Vayikra. God called Moses and begins to teach him the laws of sacrifices. But noticeably, the word Vayikra is spelled with a small aleph at the end. And our rabbis explain it as follows. We all know there's an idea of name dropping. Well, imagine if you could name drop and say, "I know God." Moses could have said, "God and I, we're really close. We talk all the time. We're really connected." But Moses was the opposite. He was the humblest man on the face of the earth. So when the verse says he called Moses, which shows an expression of connection and closeness and love, Moses makes the letter Aleph small, because the letters Vayikra without the Aleph spell Vayakar. Vayakar means he chanced upon him. He ran into him haphazardly, by chance, by accident. Not that there's a permanent ongoing relationship. Sometimes you meet a famous person, you ran into them in the airport, but you don't really connect it to them, as opposed to an ongoing relationship. So in Moses' humility, he puts the aleph small to not make himself look that important. And our rabbis say here we see Moses' great humility. But the question is, why do we learn about Moses' humility at this juncture about the laws of sacrifice? And the answer is that the Talmud says that a person who is humble, it's as though they brought all the sacrifices. Not just one, but all of them combined. Why? Because sacrifice means you gave up something of yourself. But the most difficult thing to give up is your ego, your pride. As we know, the word ego stands for ego, easing God out. And therefore it's the humble person like Moses who receives the full presence of God. The greatest prophet, Moses, was the humblest person. But the greatest sacrifice you could bring on your inner altar of your heart is humility. To not be prideful and egotistical. And therefore, this lesson of humility is taught to us at this juncture. And this is such an important lesson, especially in today's day and age. We saw the way Senator Chuck Schumer stood up on the Senate floor and preached to all of Israel who their leaders should be, who their government should be. And you would say, you're sitting in America. These people have gone through so much pain and suffering, have sacrificed so much, have shown so much courage. They're a democracy. Don't you think they know who their leader should be? Do they need you to tell them who their leader should be? Sometimes people lack humility. And therefore, when we look at our brothers and sisters in Israel, we should stand in awe of them. The strength, the resilience, the love, the unity, the outpouring of kindness that we've seen. We should stand with tremendous respect for them and never dare tell them who their leaders should be. Obviously, they know best what's good for them. They don't need us to tell them from afar what they should do. And this is the opening message of this week's Torah portion. Humility doesn't mean that you don't know your self-worth or you don't have good self-esteem. After all, Moses knew he was the greatest prophet. But it's sort of like if someone lends you $10 million. You're not arrogant that you have $10 million because you know that you have a debt to repay. That it's not yours, it was given to you, and you have to safeguard it and make sure you return it. So too, when God gives you talents and abilities and skills or a position of influence, don't become arrogant about it. Don't think you're so great. God gave it to you. It's on loan to utilize properly. Had God given it to someone else, that person would have all of this talent. And therefore, be humble about it. They tell a story about a young man who was trying to get married. And so he went to a matchmaker, and every girl she proposed, he said, nah, not good enough for me, not good enough for me, I don't like this, I don't like that. Finally, the matchmaker said, young man, what you're lacking is humility. You need to go get a little humility, and then come back when you have humility. Well, he went off, and he came back 6 months later. He said, okay, I'm ready. She started proposing different girls, and once again, he said, nah, this one's not good enough, that one's not good enough. And the matchmaker said, I thought you went and worked on your humility. He said, I have obtained humility. So he said, why are you nixing every girl? And he said, well, if these girls weren't good enough for me before I had humility, now that I have humility, they're surely not good enough for me. Humility means that you recognize the greatness of others. You appreciate the goodness of others. You focus on the good qualities and traits of others, and you appreciate them and respect them for it. As someone said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but humility is thinking less about yourself. Have a wonderful day.